Well, it was a fascinating panel because we had great diversity of experience on the panel, so we all came at it a bit differently. But I think that what we decided that there's more to strategy than just strategy, and particularly for a board member who is determining if the strategy is viable or not, what are some of the key things that you can look at or look for to be able to test that? And that's the important aspect from a board member's point of view.
A strategy is a living experience. It's a living roadmap. It has to have continual pragmatism and application for the current times changing marketplace. If you think that you've completed the strategic plan and you put it away in the drawer and say, oh, that task is done, you're finished.
And I think we tried to take it a little bit beyond the what do you do, what services do you provide, and for whom, to really talk about how resource allocations get made. And I think that was one of the takeaways is, you're providing a service or a product, and clearly there's strategic planning that's involved to do that from a life cycle perspective. But one of the most interesting things is within the strategic planning world, how does resource allocation get made and how do those trade-offs happen?
We talked about how important people are to make something happen and how important it is that the strategic plan resonate with your team, because they have to feel invested in it to execute.
I mean, when you think about all the new regulations that are coming and then the regular governance from Sarbanes-Oxley and SOX and Audit Committee, there's a tendency to focus so much on the data, the numbers, the mandatory reporting component. I think that anytime you're focused on customers, you're really talking about strategic planning because customers change. And what they want today, you're always looking at that price point where customers want either the same value proposition for less money or they want to pay slightly more but for better feature functionality. And so I think when you focus time on customers, that inherently drives you towards the strategy, which is what the business is all about. So I think that making time for that usually has a byproduct of getting more time for strategy as well.
Another area we talked about was the whole way in which technology is changing how people interact, how people are willing to make decisions, where they get their decisions, and so on. And this is having a transforming, and will have many more transforming aspects to it, all of which we cannot diagnose now. But one of the examples one of our panelists made was the point that, suppose somebody is willing to pay just for the idea of something, but actually not the thing or the service. Interesting. Is it any less real? Is it something you shouldn't pay attention to? And the answer is definitely you need to pay attention.
It felt like the audience had a very rich desire to understand some of the risk management. A couple very thoughtful people from the audience talked about sort of when is a risk also an opportunity, and does it frame itself as an opportunity or does it just look like at first glance a risk?
Another area we talked about was how joined at the hip we are internationally or globally as people, as businesses, as regions. But one concern that was expressed that's a trend that right now internationalism is being talked about in national parameters, not truly international. And it's only being discussed within borders as far as it helps the particular national agenda. And this is a serious problem because unless you can truly understand how integrated the world is, you're just not going to succeed. You won't be here.
Well, I've seen a lot of different practices. Sometimes we have a 2-day offsite devoted strictly to strategy, which I think is very valuable to ground people. I think it depends on how robust it is and the makeup of your board, whether you need more or less. But I think that even if it's a 2-day offsite or a 1-day offsite devoted to strategy, that you probably need to go back and visit it at every board meeting for updates.
Should be just a continuous process. If you're only doing strategic planning once a year, I think you're boxing it and you're really not making it that living document. So each board meeting, some aspect of that plan should be discussed. Maybe it's a resourcing discussion for talent, or it's a capital expenditure program that needs to be done. But I think it should all tie back to what it is you're trying to achieve from an enterprise vision and objectives standpoint. Also, you should have continual progress markers. So you set up some metrics, et cetera, as part of the strategic plan. So during the course of any particular year and over the course of the planning horizon, how are we doing? Where are we?